And there's a correction on the minutes approval. It's the meeting of 09/29/2025. It's a copy and paste gremlin.
Anyone care to make a motion?
I move to add 9B, the application for a road access permit for log landing. And I missed the
Change.
Just to change the meeting, the minute number 3. It says 09/08, should be 09/29.
so, change the,
I don't make motions.
I move to amend the meeting minutes from 09 or to 09/29/2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, that was painful.
Minutes approval, meeting of 9/29/2025.
I move to approve the minutes of select board meetings of 9/29/25.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 4, select board pay orders.
I move to approve the pay orders for payroll and accounts payable.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Item 5 is announcements and correspondence.
So the CDBG DR grants, that's Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, were submitted last week, and we'll hopefully hear back in November if we were granted any of them. I will be out of the office starting tomorrow through Thursday. I'm going to the town fair in South Burlington, but I will bring my computer and my phone, so I will still be available. There will be a presentation by Todd, how does he say his name? Manise, on Saturday, October 18th at 9:30 a.m. at the Town Hall about Williams Dam. And the Reinhardt Road box culvert has been placed, and the work will be completed this week, right? You think?
I'm not sure about the
Inside the dam.
guardrails,
Guardrails, but
Put a new dam inside the dam.
but yes, the road should be open tomorrow, and they should be taking the temporary road out.
awesome. That was the first project I got thrown into, so I'm really excited about it. So the correspondence included in the board's meeting packet is the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation sent notice of their intent to file a finding of no significant impact for the wastewater project.
Yeah.
The Williams Dam periodic inspection report for Williams Dam came back, which is in your packet. The dam has been downgraded from its previous condition to poor to unsatisfactory, and the hazard potential classification of significant remains unchanged. And then finally, there was an email from John Hurd, the recycling coordinator, reporting on the participation for last Saturday's hazardous waste day. That's all I got.
Item 6, visitors and concerned citizens. 6A is Cameron Habib.
Yeah.
Habib, short-term rental request. Go ahead.
Awesome. Well, yeah, nice to meet everyone. My name is Cam Hayes. This is my wife, Doria. And we're here just to ask for some flexibility to be grandfathered under the original short-term rental ordinance. So I had something a lot shorter, but I figured, coming up here, might as well just put everything on the table. So it's a little bit long, so hopefully you can bear with me. But I first learned about the original STR ordinance in November 2024 when I received a letter from the town. I reached out to Andy right away with some questions about the application, as there were a few parts I didn't understand, and I wanted to make sure I filled everything out properly. Among several of the questions, one specific concern I had was around the section asking for a designated agent. I didn't want to just assign someone I employed without fully understanding what I was committing them to or what responsibilities they'd be agreeing to take on. Didn't feel right to sign their name to something I didn't completely understand, so I was waiting for clarification from Andy before I submitted anything. Between November 21st and 26th, Andy and I exchanged emails. In his response, he wrote that he would need to postpone a detailed reply to my series of good questions because of the high volume of calls and emails he was receiving at the time. Just that phrasing, series of good questions, made it clear to me that these weren't small or unimportant details. It told me that Andy recognized that they were valid questions and required thoughtful answers, and I assumed he needed some time to look at them. On November 26th, I replied, I know the deadline is tomorrow. I just don't want to fall out of compliance and want to make sure I'm submitting an accurate application. In hindsight, of course, I would have just submitted the application, even if parts of it were incomplete, knowing what I know now. But at the time, given that Andy was the SDR administrator and had just told me I'd asked a series of good questions, it seemed reasonable to wait for his guidance rather than risk submitting something inaccurate. After I explicitly said I didn't want to fall out of compliance, it also seemed reasonable that he could have suggested, go ahead and submit what you have, we'll fix the rest later. I assume if a similar situation came up today, I'd imagine Andy would give the exact advice to the next applicant. And then if that's the case, then I think it's fair to say that this was simply just like a process oversight in November and no neglect on my side, or less neglect on my side. After that, I made several calls to Andy over the next couple of months. I didn't get through. Then this past summer, a friend from a neighboring town mentioned a new ordinance had passed that only grandfathered people who already have permits would be able to operate under the old rules. I hadn't heard about that, so I reached out to Andy again on July 22nd of 2025. At that point, I assumed that because I was in clear communication with Andy and still had unanswered questions from the previous November, that once things were sorted out, my application would be backdated to reflect the original outreach. I even asked Andy to confirm that understanding when I followed up, because I believe that was a fair and logical way to handle a situation like this. He replied on July 24th saying that he was away until August 4th and would call me back that week. I didn't hear back, so I followed up again on September 5th, and on September 9th, Andy responded that I would not be grandfathered in. I finally received the answers to my original questions on September 11th, nearly 10 months after my initial outreach, and I submitted my application immediately once I had that clarity. Now I understand that Andy and the town attorney have said that my emails don't technically qualify as an application, and that the dates for submission were clearly defined. I respect that, but I'm asking the board to consider as the context. I know like in many administrative processes, things like building permits, health inspections, business license renewals, the date of first written contact is often what matters when determining compliance. If someone reaches out with questions or paperwork before a deadline and the office acknowledges it, that communication typically holds their place in the process. Once the rest of the information is complete, the filing date is often backdated to that initial contact. And just like, I just know even the IRS, which is like one of the strictest agencies out there, allows extensions and reasonable cause waivers when someone clearly tries to comply but can't get timely guidance. So yeah, I feel like if the federal government can acknowledge something like that, I feel like a small town like Londonderry can too. Recognizing email correspondence as part of the application process isn't unusual. It's actually standard practice in many government procedures. I reached out as soon as I received the notice. Andy himself called my questions a series of good questions and acknowledged he was backed up. I clearly said I didn't want to follow compliance, and I didn't hear back and followed up multiple times. Obviously, I'm not suggesting Andy did anything wrong. I know he's one person managing a lot. In a small town like Londonderry, where we all rely on one administrator for guidance, it's understandable that a resident like me would wait for direction rather than risk submitting something inaccurate, especially when that form involves designating another person's legal responsibility, in this case, the designated agent. And I'll just say, like, even now, like, parts of the ordinance are still, I know that they're still being defined. When I was submitting my application, I asked Andy about the Knox box requirement, and he said that part of the process is still on hold, pending a solution with the fire department. I think that just is another example of how things are still being figured out together. We're figuring out things together, and that wasn't unreasonable. There had been confusion early on. And then, yeah, really, like, this isn't about blame. I just think it's about fairness for the paper trail that shows good faith effort to comply, that kept trying to do the right thing. And I'm simply just asking the board to use its discretion to allow me to be treated under the earlier ordinance, given those circumstances. And happy to complete any additional paperwork or steps right away. I just don't think I should lose my chance because of communication delays and unanswered questions that were out of my control. Thank you for considering that, and yeah, appreciate the time tonight.
Andy, do you have anything you'd like to follow up with?
Yeah, I mean, I for context, I would share a part of the letter that Cam's referring to having received. It went out in mid-November and allowed 2 weeks for people who had been detected online as having STRs operating to license them. And the letter says, this letter is the third paragraph, this letter is the first warning of non-compliance without a monetary penalty. If you register your short-term rental by Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, you can avoid a ticket for failing to register. If the town does not receive your short-term rental registration by November 27th, you will be issued a ticket for non-compliance. So I got a letter from Cameron dated 21st. So we're 6 days to the deadline. Hi, Andy. I just got a letter in the mail yesterday regarding the short-term rental ordinance in Londonderry. It said I should have received a printed announcement around this, but I never received it. Earlier in the letter, it refers to the one that was sent out with every tax bill. So everybody, regardless of whether they had an STR or not, got a slip of paper with their tax bill in the summer. He continues, in any case, a couple of questions for you. One, it sounded like an approved application needs to be in place if we plan to rent our place for more than 14 days per calendar year, assuming these on less than 30-day stays. Is that right? And if so, how are you tracking whether we are or aren't in compliance? Meaning, how will you track whether I've gone over that allotment and or shouldn't be fined if I haven't gone over that allotment? Question two, I'm assuming the funds for this tax are being collected to help any unhoused residents and or aiding in some of the material housing problems in the area. Can you expand on where this money is being deployed to help the community with these serious problems? Thanks so much for your insight, Cam. So I wrote back with answers to those two questions. How are you tracking compliance and where is the tax going? And then I got back the morning before applications were due, a longer series of questions that Cam was referring to that included a series of requests for elaboration on items in the application. And I did not provide detailed answers. That's the reply. Cameron's absolutely right that said, you know, when my inbox is empty, I'll try to get back to these good questions. They are. The context there is that we had 1 day to go before the deadline, and you know, there were 25 emails. I went and looked at the voicemail history and responded to 25 calls, and then set about responding to the substantial number of applications that came in by that deadline, and essentially have been responding in one way or another to applications ever since. So I aired with the town attorney over the summer. Remember, I took a break, came back. I had, I think, 5 or 6 items for Bob Fisher to look at, and one of them was Cam's email asking to be considered grandfathered for having, you know, essentially been an applicant applicant in the year before, and I asked for Attorney Fisher's insight on, like, you know, he put the term good standing in the ordinance as one of the conditions for grandfathering. And I said, does this seem to match that? And pointedly, that I did not supply answers to some of the questions that came in the day before the application was due. Is that, you know, where does that sit relative to the grandfathering language? And his response to that was, this is not an applicant, this is not somebody who was enrolled in the program, and therefore that the qualifications for grandfathering shouldn't be applied. After that, I didn't hear anything from the deadline date until late July from CAM. And while you said you tried to get in touch several times by phone, I've looked through the history of voicemails because our office system allows us to see every voicemail that's coming in on the office line, and there were none from that number. So I'm fielding a number of requests right now for people who want to be retroactively enrolled, and in an entirely separate conversation, nothing to do with two people in the room today. I was asked if I would accept and backdate an application this morning to enroll somebody who is now feeling the weight of the changes to the ordinance for people who haven't enrolled. So I also, the summer correspondence that struck me was Cam's assertion that this is not a short-term rental, which I will add to the conversation because I think it's an interesting fact. In part of the petition through me to have a retroactive license for the first year was the statement that this is our second home, not a short-term rental. And I think the record of renting the place shows otherwise. The history of the volume of reviews of the house, it's a very popular rental that gets lots of traffic and rentals, so that's all been going on unlicensed. And to me, it's as simple. I mean, as of today, because I visited the house yesterday to do an inspection, the walkthrough, they paid, they're enrolled for this new year as of today. But I mean, I leave it to the town, but I have put my series of responses to the town attorney for his consideration, and if he thought that it was appropriate for the town to see that exchange or the lack of some exchange as warranting status as a first-year applicant, and I think differently about this.
I was on the phone call with Bob Fisher at one point too, and that's what Bob said, and does not constitute an application. And after our last meeting, we went with what the town attorney has said and what Andy has determined.
I think that's probably the most reasonable course for us in following our attorney's suggestions. I mean, it's based on the information that he has, but it sounds like it's the same information. It sounds the same to me, you know. I don't know how else we could reconsider that with his recommendation being the way it is.
and there's no appeals process built into the ordinance.
I just want to address a couple things. Just the point about saying it's not an STR or it's a second home. I think the point I was making just there is that, like, that is our second home. Like, we are up here very frequently. It's not like a sole business that's like for profit. It's like we bought this place to have forever, to hand down to our kids. We're up here a lot in the community. It's not a, we're supplementing a little bit here and there to help, make some improvements on the house. Ideally, we'd never have to rent it again at some point, and just be able to have it as either a full-time retirement place, a few years from now, or even now, just be able to go up whenever we want because we love coming up here. So that was just, it wasn't saying that it wasn't rented on a short-term basis. It was just, that the perception of like it's not a rental unit. It's a second home that we offer to people that want to experience beautiful place up here. I think just the sticking point for us, I think a little bit is and like I'm sure you can understand the frustration that it's like we could have submitted like essentially like an incomplete application if we have certain things filled out or things incorrectly filled out, and apparently like that would have been okay, or that would have held our place, and that's why it was like I don't want to fall out of compliance. And like I said, like I'd hope that in the future, if that came up, it'd be like, no, just submit it as is. If there's, incorrect information on there, we can rectify it at a later date, you'll still be okay. Like I'd assume that's how that process would work now. And it's like, I think I'm like sort of a test case, the guinea pig, where it's like, oh, that happened to Cam. We won't let that happen to like people in the future that are applying because we'll just say submit it. We'll figure it out later. Like, don't get hung up on every single detail. Like we can refine it as we go. Just get the application in. And it feels like I'm kind of like a test case, a guinea pig, where it's like I get kind of screwed over. Moving forward, it probably won't happen. I hope it doesn't happen to other folks. But that's like where I'm like struggling with, because I'm like, if I was just told, if there's just a nudge, like, hey, just pass it in, we'll figure out if there's like one or two things or three things, like we'll figure it out later. And I didn't get that guidance at all. And I don't think it was intentional, but like I didn't get that guidance. And I think, stating that I didn't want to follow the compliance, I feel like it's pretty explicit that it's like, what do I need to do to like hold my space in line since the deadline was imminent. So I think that's just the point I want to make there, that I'm having a little bit of trouble with. And I know the town attorney, I don't know if they have, are on the complete side, or I don't know if there's like additional pieces that they're concerned with, or if it's just the one line they are like not an applicant because they, technically didn't have the application in before. But I just want to understand everything from the town attorney or what we need to provide to, I don't know, maybe persuade or have you guys think differently about it. Or get like a second look with some of the greater context and where we're coming from.
So the deadline that you were facing was you couldn't rent. You weren't supposed to rent anymore until you got your application in. You could still file an application until July.
Yeah, but I think to our point, Andy still never responded to that email. So after the one where Cam said, I don't want to be out of compliance, there was no response. So the next email we sent to Andy was when we found out that the new ordinance passed this summer. So if Andy had gotten back to us in January or like February or something, then we would have filed it. But I think that's our point, that the questions never got answered. And then even now, it still took a few extra asks from the September emails and the August emails to finally get it. And then as soon as he gave it to us, we told our caretaker what was expected of him, put his name on the application, and sent it into Andy, sent you guys the payment, did the walkthrough, all of that. And kind of like Cam said, like, yeah, I mean, I guess we could have like harassed Andy with a bunch of emails and a bunch of phone calls, but again, it's not our business. We have 2 little kids at home. I'm a teacher, Cam works full time. Like, we were kind of just waiting for him to get back to us. And then, I mean, I guess, yeah, we should have been more persistent in hindsight and just said something, but that's kind of what our thought process was behind it.
Thoughts from the board?
I think that being the first year, we're gonna run into these issues, you know, and I think we should make some leeway.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the leeway thing, especially when they went months without a response during the winter months too. Like they were waiting for a reply.
And I think the crux of the problems that you're hearing the most about now, Andy, has to do with the grandfathering. It's not the ordinance itself, it's the changes and the realization of what those, I mean, it's significant that if you're not grandfathered, the rules are a lot different. And
Oh, it's all about the volume of rental. That's the only issue that's come up, is how many nights can someone rent, so.
right.
But knowing you were not in compliance, you kept renting,
Well,
correct?
because we thought, as Cam mentioned, like many municipalities do, as soon as we submitted our application, that things would be backdated. That was that's just how I guess wrongfully assumed, but that we were totally not trying to screw the system, as you guys can see. Like, we submitted our application as soon as we got the answers. Andy came to our house, everything was good to go, the money is paid. Like, we are certainly not trying to skirt around any type of system. Like, we're trying to do the right thing. Like Cam said, like, we love it up here. We're just trying to supplement it so, like, we can fix our house when something breaks, and, like, our kids can come and enjoy it up here, and our families can. So, yes, like, we assumed that when we submitted the application, eventually when he got our questions and we paid, it just was retroactive. And that's, we could have been more persistent, but our assumption was he would get back to us, and nothing against Andy by any means. We understand, like Jim was just saying, it's the first year, I'm sure he had a million questions and a million things to answer, so we were trying to give him some grace as well.
And I think just like, we know, small town, one person.
Yeah,
Like,
and I know it's not even a full-time position, it's like a part-time position, so it's like he's not, it's like a lot, and we get that, so we're trying to like be respectful of that as well.
And just, I'm not like sitting at home documenting, and like now we have some stuff. But it wasn't like I'm gonna document like everything. It's like, oh, just like a conversation, like logically it makes sense. Like I feel like an objective standpoint, if there's like an objective observer here, they'd be like, oh yeah, like he did this good faith stuff, he sent in the stuff, like then once he got information, he followed through with everything, like it feels like they're, from like if you're looking at this objectively, it feels like somebody would be like, yeah, it feels like they made the right attempts. Like there's like correspondences within those dates, things like that. I guess that's where we're coming from.
Yeah.
I'll share my discomfort with this, is that the questions that came in the day before the application was due, I see as almost all answerable by reading the application. And the fact that this huge volume of applications came in by the stated deadline, and not all of them were perfect, but they were submitted. And whether there was a consequence or not, there were people who made the deadline and filed things. And I think, when I go through the questions, they're just looking, and some of them are answered simply by the text in the application.
So I think
Well, I was just gonna say, like you did indicate that it was a series of good questions.
and you said again tonight too, it was.
Yes.
Oh,
But
they're
I
all
mean,
fine, but they're answerable by just studying the application.
I think
And the ordinance.
Well, I kind of combed through the ordinance and like the designated agent thing, like just for us, like having Nash and like putting Nash on our, like as our caretaker, like I wanted to know what we fully expected of him and to have somebody and to understand what like on call 24 hours and stuff meant so that we were aware of that. Like as Cam mentioned, that was our biggest question with it. And I think that was kind of not super clear clear, and I also feel like kind of diminishing our questions is a little bit belittling, just like if we're trying to get clarity on things, like we're trying to do it to the best of our ability, and like we didn't want to submit an inaccurate application because then we could be told we were like lying on the application, you know, so there's a lot of nuance that goes into that. So I don't necessarily think that's the fairest assumption to say that like our questions could have just been answered if we read more, because I don't think the caretaker one was super cut and dry.
And I feel like a series of good questions sort of implies that they're not simple. It's not just, oh, read through the ordinance, it's documented there. A series of good questions, and let me get back to you. Not reread the ordinance, or like it's laid out there pretty clearly, where you can find it in this section or something like that. And then just the second point is, like, again, any sort of fill it out to your best of your ability, and we can rectify any issues after, or we can answer that after the fact, get it in so you're in the system. And I think, again, I think moving forward, it's kind of like cam the test case, like that wouldn't happen again, because it'd be like, just get it in, we'll like figure out if there's an issue or whatever after. Those are just the 2 points around that. That's it.
My concern is if we make any judgment besides what we made last meeting, we are inviting a lawsuit from Ben Sargent, because he actually paid. He did not fill an application out, but he actually sent in money.
So can I make one comment?
Can I make a point too? Tom and I were in the same phone call, and Bob Fisher made it very clear that there is no appeal process in the ordinance. So the select board can't go against its own ordinance. It's a legal document, and you're bound by it. You may want to build an appeal process into that ordinance, but at present, there is not one. So people can come here and voice their concerns, but you really can't do anything about it legally.
I think in regards to Ben's case, because we watched that too, I think somebody actually mentioned that they wish there had been some type of paper trail to back up what he was applying for and stuff, and like we have a paper trail. Like, so I'm just kind of, I totally get what you're saying about the attorney, but like also maybe this is a test case that actually works in favor of the town, where you say, hey, no, we only grandfathered them because they had proof and paperwork and dates on it. And so if you don't have that, like, you're out. Like, sorry, there's no question around it.
I think that's the difficult thing, is setting precedent because of the fact that we have the ordinance, that we don't have a lot of, or any leeway in the translation of it, or it's based on our, the town attorney basically tells us exactly what the wording means, and in a case-by-case situation, the last few cases, he's said pretty definitively what the facts look like. I wasn't part of the conversation to see the information that he got necessarily to make his decision on, but based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like he had the information and clearly stated what we were able to do.
You got everything that you need.
I would just add that I feel constrained by what Attorney Fisher said, and I didn't ask him to agree with how I had conducted myself in my job. I asked what would it mean to follow the ordinance? And my performance at work it's related to this, but it's also separate from this. So I have several times invited Bob to, tell me bluntly, how should this go? And if it felt like I had latitude, I've learned to ask him, is it okay to be interpretive here? Is it okay to be, to cut some slack, or to, and I feel like he's given me correction on the need to be literal in what the ordinance says, which, never mind my feelings about that, but if that's what it means to follow the ordinance, then think I need to follow that. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of work here in the town that has room for some personal interpretation, but to grandfather a non-applicant doesn't seem like a path I can follow. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that in this situation. And I think that maybe the work that we need to do in the future is, if there is any consideration for an appeals process, or it would be something that's not in place right now, but it's something that if you're fielding, you know, a stack of calls or inquiries about this particular thing, then that's going to help us, you know what parts of the process need to be adapted.
Right now, the place for the select board is if someone was to accrue enough municipal violations or tickets in a 12-month period and the license was revoked, then the select board can weigh in on that removal of the license. And I think that I agree that looking at adding a broader or more open appeal process, or the chance for the select board to weigh in on other elements of the whole licensing and enrollment processes would be a healthy addition to the next, the ordinance that will draft for May to take effect next July. Right now, it's not there. The select board role is just that. I guess the ability to overturn a license. What's that word?
Revocation.
Revocation. Yes.
I definitely acknowledged that we're in some new territory, nationwide even. This type of thing is going on in a lot of towns, and we're ahead of a lot of people, but it means that we don't have a lot of, we're navigating it ourselves. And I think that, maybe there are some things that seem unfair, but it's also based on the input and time spent on coming up with the ordinance and trying. The effect is what we're looking for, and the details are, that's what you pick through as it comes up. And I mean, this is something, you guys aren't the only ones that have approached us with similar requests. So, and it sounds like there'll be others as well. And I think our responsibility is, consistency and fairness based on what we have in place, which is pretty clear.
I'm curious, do you know if an incorrect application or incomplete application is filled out, is that considered an applicant? Or if I filled it out incomplete or inaccurate initially, I wouldn't have been considered an applicant anyways because it was incomplete or incorrect?
Andy would have worked with you to correct any mistakes that were in the application.
But I wouldn't have been an applicant at that point because it wouldn't have been filled
Right, it
out.
wouldn't have been filed in time.
It wouldn't have been filed in time by the November 27th date if it wasn't completed.
So the date was
November 27th, the only cutoff date there was you could have been fined for continuing after that.
It was a warning about ticketing.
Yeah, I was just saying you have to continue renting, you have to register.
I think just one other thing I want to say too is it sounds like you guys agree that there is some maybe something that should be added to the ordinance where there are these outlying cases, because I think you said there's only 4 people that are appealing, so that's not a huge amount. So it seems like they're kind of one-off circumstances that like maybe they, yeah, like, I don't know, maybe there should be some type of appeal process, because if there's not that many people, it seems like it's a very case-by-case nuanced type basis. And if people are in a similar situation to us that have documentation, that have these correspondences, where Andy says, I acknowledge those, I'll get back to you type deal, like maybe they should be looked at too, you know? Like when people are trying to do the right thing, it just kind of sucks when you get screwed over for trying to, you know, be in compliance. And I mean, you know, yeah, it's just like frustrating when it's like we try to do the right things, we're trying to submit this stuff, we're trying to pay the town, we're trying to do all of that, and as soon as we get Andy's responses, we do all of that, and we're in, you know, and everything's all set to go, and it sucks that, like, yeah, if he had just responded back and like, submit something incomplete, we wouldn't be in this situation. And for us, for you guys, it's like, oh no, like I know there's like legal ramifications, but for us, it's like our house, like our livelihood, our kids, like we want to be able to make improvements to it, stuff like that. And so it's a big blow to us. And like, I don't know if like, you know, next year you put in something where you can come to the select board and do your case and stuff. And it's like, so we kind of were the guinea pigs with that then. And we're kind of like, are we going to be able to do that down the road? Or is it going to be like, oh, it's too far gone, that was the first year. So it kind of seems like the fairness point to your point is like, it doesn't really seem fair. It kind of seems like we're just kind of interpreting it how the lawyer wants to interpret it. And like, I think that there's a lot of gray area to it, which it seems to be we're in agreement about. And it just, I don't know, it kind of just sucks.
Well, and the intention was not to be unfair.
Oh, totally, yeah. And like Jim was saying, I think there's a lot of learning curves, and we agree with that too. And kind of like we were just saying with like the knockbox and stuff, there's still things that are getting ironed out that aren't like totally black and white in it. So it's just kind of, yeah.
Well, what does it mean if you don't get grandfathered in?
It means we can only rent for 50 nights, which I know to people probably doesn't, like, it's probably like, oh, 50 nights, you still can rent for 50 nights. For us, it's the security of knowing, like, if we need to rent for more than 50 nights because something breaks in our house and we need to, like, you know, replace a rotten log or something, we can rent it out to help supplement that, and we don't have to worry about our kids and us not being able to come up anymore. God forbid Cam lost his job, like something like that, that we wouldn't have to, like, worry about selling our house and not being able to come up anymore. Also, like, if we don't want to be like scouring and be like, oh my God, are we at 51 nights? Like when we submit this to Andy, we don't want to be at 51 nights, and just, it's a lot of, and we also know that this is setting the precedent for the future for right now. I mean, I know things could change, but right now it's setting the precedent for the next, forever at this point.
Yeah, the 50-night limit is for this year only. I mean, that will be revisited also, right?
Well, that's even more of a reason to want to be grandfathered in if it goes, well, if you're not on the original ordinance, now they're down to 30 or 20, it's even more.
Well, once you're in now, you only have the 50. If the ordinance is redone, anybody who has an application already in cannot be lowered.
Okay.
But I think the main point here is you got a letter saying you needed to register, and you kept renting for, I don't know how much of the year, and you might be able to answer that.
Well, I think our main point to that is we tried to register. We thought it was going to be backdated. We were trying to get everything in order.
But how long did you rent that year?
I have no idea. I have to look. I mean, we were up for every
That
weekend
letter
that winter.
specifically said you have to stop renting until you get an application in.
Right, and to our point, we were trying to get the application in. And we thought that when Andy gave us the information, we filled out the application, that then everything was going to be backdated.
You were supposed to stop renting, period. Without an application in, you could not rent. You were subject to a fine after that date, November 27th. You could have been fined for every night you rented.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
That's what the ordinance says.
Yeah, I know.
understand, and I think it just goes back to, like, are we in the business of, like, being confrontational and trying to, like, extract money, or are we just human beings having a conversation, sending an email to Andy, trying to do the right thing?
Figure it out.
I thought it was the latter, but, like, yeah, I mean, it's noted that, like, maybe that's not necessarily the case, but, like, I thought we were making good faith efforts. I didn't think, nothing was said, never got a response. I guess if I filled the application, maybe you would have helped me. I don't know if you would have, because I sent a note asking for questions. I wasn't getting help there. So just, I don't know, like it's, like I get where you guys are coming from, and now it's, you know, I feel like it's like taking that piece of like kind of making us feel like we were doing wrong and we were like, whatever, when it's like we're just, you know, we have this paper trail trying to do the right thing, and it's like, okay, like, yeah, we could look at a lot of things that, you know, I'm sure we've done wrong, everyone's done wrong, like it's not when I'm a 30-person operation running this thing, it's just, you know, we're at home busy trying to send out emails, make sure you get that email in, send them, like follow back up, like going back and forth, like it's a lot. When you're not, it's not a business, like it's not, it's, yeah, to us, it's not a business. It's like we're, you know, doing this as like to make a few extra bucks to, again, pay for repairs, like be able to go up there as much as we can, things like that. But yeah, I get it. I guess we just, yeah, I don't know.
Thoughts on the board?
Well, I think, I mean, going forward, if you're registered now, then next year, if there are any changes to the ordinance, then every year is going to create a group of grandfathered people, right, or applicants. If changes are made, it will be going forward from that point. So the fact that you're registered now is good, and you could be part of the process of any suggestions for changes when the time comes for amendments to the ordinance for next year. I mean,
But I'm also, I mean, I remember the 50-night cap being one of the most debated amendments this year. And
that it was too small, not too high.
That it was, you know, it's one of the strategies, and we looked at another strategy, which is limiting the total number of licenses available, which is what some towns have done. And my understanding is that if the committee looks at it starting in the wintertime and decides that 80 months is a better limit, you know, a higher limit's better than the 50, then with next year, you know, with an updated ordinance, that would apply to all, not just, like it's not, it doesn't, being a second-year applicant rather than a first doesn't, you know, this version of the ordinance is a 365-day template, right? And next year's could be, you know, allow, well, it could have all sorts of changes to it, but and those would be applied. But if, you know, if the ninth cap were increased, then everybody who currently sits with the 50-ninth would see that change. And I'm not going to predict the future, but you know, the people who've asked, I don't feel like the mood of the committee or the select board has been, let's keep tightening it or limiting it. I think this was a test year of that new amendment. Tom, does that seem like a fair characterization of? And I'm not forecasting a change, but I will forecast that it will be reconsidered as effective or not effective, right? And to me, the whole ordinance is judged against Article 2. You know, is it achieving the purposes that Article 2, the purpose statement of the ordinance lays out?
We don't have much choice, but we hired Andy to do this job, and he's doing a great job. But talk to the lawyers, and next year you can try again, right?
No, you can try to up the nights.
Huh?
They can try to up the nights with the committee.
Is that on a case-by-case basis, or do you mean like?
No, we just
Participation in the process.
yearly we go over the ordinance to see if there's any changes we think need to be made.
If you guys ever put in something that was like there was an appeal process for like people that didn't get in or something like that, like would there be a statute of limitations, or it's like we could come back, you know, like if next year that goes in, Is it gonna be like, oh no, that had to be within the last calendar year or something, you know what I mean?
I think it's all what you make it.
Yeah, I don't.
Depending what you
I don't
put in
think
the
we can
ordinance.
answer that at this point, honestly.
Well, we'd love to still be considered if that's,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, if there's, I mean, I guess moving forward, if there's an opportunity even to partner on like our experience or like, you know, how we've operated or anything like that, like happy to provide information or, you know, because I know you guys aren't, like, I don't think you're doing any STR stuff. So if there's an opportunity there to partner and give our perspective on certain things, like, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, I believe we started in December last year.
Yeah, I think the first public meeting ended up being like early January, but it's
Early
definitely
January.
started to take the planning stages to December.
And we post all the agendas for those meetings as well.
Yeah, and they're all public.
Any more thoughts from the board? I feel for you, but our hands are tied with the ordinance.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Appreciate your time.
Any other visitors and concerned citizens?
I just have a question about update on the status of the website.
Oh, I forgot to put that in my announcement. So we're kind of at the end game. They've migrated hopefully all of the things that we asked them to migrate. They're in the Q&A process right now. We're having 15-minute check-in meetings every 2 weeks to gauge their progress. We managed to score a .gov domain, which is in Pete's hands now. Hopefully, it'll be a smooth transition where we go live on the new site and with our .gov address, and all of our emails will change as well. Training will be happening for the people on the committee soon. There's a Friday and a Monday training scheduled, and that will lead us through the back end and how to update it and change it on our own. So once they do their thing, they go away and it's ours.
Do we have any launch date?
We haven't come up with, we're still aiming towards the end of October, but we don't have a firm date.
Getting
Yeah.
closer, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Anyone else? Moving on to item 7, town officials business, 7A, short-term administrator updates. Updates.
This is just a quick catch up on some numbers, which I thought was timely. This time last year, 53 applications had been submitted. Right now, 68 have been submitted. Last year, of the 53 that came in, it would take a lot of sifting through paper to know how many had been completed by this date. In other words, how many full licensees, because it took a while to move a lot of those first-year folks through the process. But this year, the 68 received, 43 are complete. In other words, fully licensed, sent back, new registration numbers for the year. And one of the biggest changes for this year is that I've asked that people not pay their registration fee until after the walkthrough inspection, because that's part of, the fee is connected to bedroom count, which it wasn't last year. So it helps to confirm what the layout of the house looks like. And there has been some change in the last year in some of the layout of homes, but that takes me to the financial side. I think last year, everybody who applied, almost everybody, submitted a payment at the same time. This year, there's a little bit of a lag, but with 43 applications complete, we've collected roughly $31,000 in registration fees, which is up from $19,000 at this time last year. So it's a roughly 60% increase. And that's also with the delay. In other words, there are 15 that are right now in process. Maybe it's more like 20, but last count was there are 15 that are working their way through to finalize various changes. And so I think from the financial side, it's looking much more like the budget will reach what it should. The cost should be covered. One of the changes that's notable is that 9 of the, I think we ended up at 102 finally by the June 30th deadline. 9 of those have dropped out of the program officially. I mean, I've been told that people are either not going to rent anymore, it's just the place is just going to be for family use, or 4 of them have moved to long-term rentals rather than short-term, which, again, it's anecdotal, but as people make decisions, it's really interesting to hear what they're deciding. And the fact that there's been some migration toward long-term, I think, is a sign of success of the ordinance, and that's a good thing to report. The biggest push this year, the biggest change, I would say, is that the safety amendments have resulted in more work by homeowners here, or STR operators. In other words, that majority of units that host 8 or fewer and couldn't really be scrutinized for the safety code or the fire code last year and now can be. There are a number of people in a delay. They're in process. And I do what the fire marshals do, which is just give people an automatic 30 days to corrections, assuming that they're not so dangerous that the place should not be occupied. But if people have existing fire alarms, but they need to be replaced by either interconnected ones or more up-to-date ones, then in process they can keep renting. But that's what's changed. That's created a lot more work, certainly a lot more smoke and CO alarm sales locally, because that's one of the biggest things is finding out-of-date or miswired units. And there's a lot of changing of bedroom windows, either changing hardware or actually purchasing one window per bedroom that now meets the code. And easily the best story of the year is that one undersized window in a unit. When I talk about the need for the firefighter to get in or the person to get inside to get out, the owner described the bear that had come through that undersized window and said, like, come on, if the bear can do it, can't the firefighter also? I'm sorry, measurements are measurements, they still got to meet the code, right? But anyway, that's the one moment of humor in the safety inspection business was that the idea that the egress works for the bear. So, any questions about that rundown? Okay.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you.
That's helpful.
Thanks for the way you're handling this. You're doing a good job.
Well, thanks for saying so, Jim. It's fraught with, ups and downs, that's for sure. But appreciate
The
it.
challenges.
Thank you, Andy. 7B, Recreation Director. B1 is Pingree Park contract with Lawn Master.
So Liam wanted to be here, but he was coming down with a cold and he just threw out his back. So,
Any other excuses?
he came hobbling into my office. He's like, do I have to come? I was like, I don't think so. So basically, I gave you the contract there. That is just for the rest of the year. And then next year they'll revisit it. But that's the cost of that. He just needs you to authorize him to sign the contract. Or for me to sign the contract, whichever one you want.
Yeah, I think it's fields are starting to look good and again. So. Anyone care to make a motion? No, we don't have one.
I'm sorry, I didn't, it was late in the day.
I would make a motion to approve the contract with Lawn Master for Pingree Park, and I would authorize town administrator to sign paperwork on behalf of the town.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 8, Transfer Station 8A's updates. I have no updates at this time. Item 9, Roads and Bridges, 9A's updates.
We just went through a bunch of updates last week, I guess, but the current ones, Reinhardt Culvert is assembled and mostly backfilled. There's the potential that the road could open tomorrow while they still work on, we still would have guardrails and the removal of the temporary road to go, so there will be work ongoing, but the difficult part is complete. Also, under Mountain Road, the culvert replacement is ongoing. They have the road closed signs up, and it's for local traffic only. They're working in each position, so with Crossroad being one access, there is the potential for always being able to get in one way or the other, but that will be ongoing. I would say still weeks at this point, but
Yeah, open the end of October, start of November.
yeah, it'll be after the culverts. It'll be top coating and grading, so there'll be continually equipment working in that area and on the road. So beware. Also, Winhall Hollow Road has the grinding done and the shim layer on the southbound lane done today. Moving along pretty quickly now that they're paving, so hope to see that come together.
It seems Niagara Grove Road is just waiting for them to finish this and then they're gonna jump right on that.
It's the same crew, so once Winhall Hollow is done, they'll jump back over and pave from, well, grind first, but then pave from the chip seal location out to the 11. So
I would expect to be 2 days at work probably.
yeah, that one should go a little quicker. The mileage is far less than Winhall Hollow, so still a lot of work going on, but progress is being made. So that's about all I have.
And the new truck's just waiting to go to Viking to get the body on this, as far as I know.
Sounds like it could be in a line of trucks waiting for similar things.
9B, Log Landing, Sherwood Forest access permit.
So, an application was brought to Will, I believe, and it is for a log landing, which typically we issue a road access permit and then the access is removed and then the permit expires. So this particular one is over town property. There's a landing previously there, but the access needs to be fixed up to be used currently, so I feel like it can be approved, and then probably Josh and myself would go back out when the logging is complete and the access is removed and the permit will expire.
I don't have a
You don't have a motion.
motion for that one. I wasn't entirely sure what you were planning on doing, whether it was an access, whether you were gonna just do a permit or whether it was.
It's not technically an access permit, it's down there, it's letting someone use the town land to access their property. That's what I've gathered. And historically, it was done before. Are you,
Yes, my name is Rick Kelly. I'm a forester. I've been a forester for Rob Kohler for quite a while, and Bill Taylor before that. And we actually use this, Willie Crandall did some work for us, and he's done a lot of work for us a long time. I think about 10 years ago, a little less, he used that access to bring wood out, and it worked out very well. And we actually improved it a little bit by putting rock and stone in places, and then we cleaned it up before we left. So we had, I think, good success. The key for us really is safety on Route 11. We have 2 other access points on Route 11, but we're right down on Route 11. And we think this is better using a town road and coming up to Route 11 that way.
sounds like it's got precedent already, so.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we have had an application actually filled out for it. In this case, the town is the landowner, so it is a little bit different. I don't know.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Eileen, I was like, I don't see that reason. We just need to give permission to use the town property.
Yeah, and I mean, I think
As far as I can
if the same guidelines were roughly followed, then you install what you need to do the work, and when you're done.
We're happy to have you approve it. That's not a problem.
Yeah, myself or our road foreman, Josh, could swing by. When it's complete, just reach back out and just go take a
So
look.
we anticipate we'd like to start this month, but it depends on weather, and all we're bringing out is hemlock primarily. And the hemlock markets are in flux. So it'd be a hemlock harvest, and that's pretty low quality wood typically. But the idea is to bring the hemlock out that way and then utilize the road coming up. So we could start then, or should I notify the town before we start? How would you like to do that?
I think you are notifying us. We're notified. I mean, I think in this case, we're kind of saying that it's town-owned property, so it's not exactly the same process, but if it sort of mirrors what we would have someone else do for their own property, then I think it's fair.
Great, thank you very much.
If that's...
Yeah. Just for the motion, what's the property owner's name?
Rob Kohler, Robert
Kohler.
Kohler, Robert Kohler Jr.
And I have the parcel ID for the,
I have it in the email if you want me to read it from...
Yeah, we got the parcel ID here
it's
too.
the parcel ID of the Sherwood Forest parcel that you'd be going through. It's up on the very top, it's in very small letters.
Yeah. 6606.
That's right.
Yeah. I would approve access for across town-owned property for Rick Kelly on behalf of
Kohler.
the Kohler,
Robert Kohler.
Robert Kohler, to use the town-owned parcel 066068000 for a temporary logging access to be removed upon the completion of logging on parcel 112037.000.
Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
Second, third,
All those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, sure. A little bit more than 15 minutes, sorry.
Item 10, old business. 10A, add library as approved public meeting space.
So the librarian, whose name escaped me, came and asked whether there could be public meetings there. It's been a couple committees have asked whether they could meet there. And when you guys approved the 3 spaces, it was the town office, the town hall, and neighborhood connections, and not the library. So this is just if you are amenable to having public open meeting law meetings at the library as well. Some committees feel that I think it's maybe a warmer space. I don't know. They would prefer that. Some of them would. So.
The more places we have for people to get to, the better off we are, right?
I don't really see a problem with it, as long as they're able to do what they need to do.
It's a public facility, so.
As long as it's, accessible and unlocked, and yeah.
It's not a lot different than the neighborhood connections,
Right.
as far as like the status of it, I
Yeah.
guess is what I'm.
I mean, I don't think they have any equipment for, hybrid meetings or anything like that. Neighborhood Connections is set up that way, but not all the meetings have to be hybrid or have an online presence, so.
It's a public building. It's not a private residence. I guess I don't see a problem with it.
I think as long as they're able to adhere to the requirements for the, open meeting stuff, I think that there's no reason.
Yeah, I'd say as long as they meet the requirements.
Right? I don't know what other concerns there would be.
All right, anyone care to make a motion?
I move to approve the use of the South Londonderry Library by town of Londonderry public bodies. You say something about abiding by.
You don't have to
They
say
really
it, just say it.
Yeah,
They have to.
They're legally bound to.
yeah. I'll remind them if they don't.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Moved on to item 11, new business. 11A, approved town office use request, Weston Theater Company.
Any conflicts?
Not that I know of.
It's just their board
It's
meeting.
just their board meeting, and I put it on the calendar for our shared calendar.
Is it on a weekend?
It's on a weekend. The only thing, the last time that they had a meeting, they moved the table around, and so I don't know if you want to make it,
They literally
contingent
just put it
on, make everything. It was like
Same
this.
style, just in a different.
That's when the legs of this table fell off.
Yeah, so.
And they ended up also kind of scratching the floor when they did that. So I don't know if you want to put anything in it that they need to put, because there's something in the facilities agreement that says you have to put the building back the way it was.
Without scratching the floor.
Without scratching the floor.
I would just say to ask them to leave the furniture where it is. Because it was literally this same configuration, just going that way.
You ready?
Yeah.
I think so.
I move to authorize the use of the town office by the Western Theater for a board meeting on 10/11/2025 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and to have them return furniture and everything to its original positions, and to have the authorize the town administrator to sign the facility use agreement on behalf of the town.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And who wants the last one?
Go for it.
Well, that's one to you.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
That's your.
Opposed?